Max Cady was released from prison.
What does that have to do with us?
He's been locked up 17 years for a murder he didn't do.
You were his lawyer, right?
I had a good life once, too.
Are you afraid of me?
Why would I be afraid of you?
Well, thanks for coming, everyone, and thank you, Eben, for this.
Thank you.
This was amazing, obviously.
Thank you.
I'm gutted we didn't get to see more episodes, actually. I think there
It's
should have been
a
at
lot,
least
though.
two.
I mean,
At
it's
least
so
two.
stressful. I was jumping. Like, I've never seen it so big and so loud. And like I said to you just now, I've got adrenaline right now from watching it, which is kind of pathetic considering how many times I've seen it. But it's a lot. I've got to say, I'm really glad they haven't sort of Netflixed put all 10 out at once, because I feel like each one, there's so much. There's so much. This show gets kind of crazier and crazier.
Yeah.
So I think one's enough.
So is there only one out now?
They did release 1 and 2. So 3 comes out on Friday.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's a weekly rollout.
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. I wish you could at least show 2. But I was thinking, I mean, Cape Fear, classic. One's in the 60s and one's in 91 by Scorsese. What were the discussions like between you and Morten while you were like talking about the look? Did you want to pay homage to the Scorsese? Did you want to at some point stay away from parts of it, or what were the chats like?
I think the 91 film in particular, we did look at both and talk about both, but the 91 film in particular, at least for me, had always been there as this crazy Scorsese film that I think I saw it too young, and I had these sort of memories of the fireworks and I had like the score. When someone said Cape Fear, what straight away came to mind for me was the score, De Niro's performance, and certain sort of iconic shots. So I felt, at least, that those things were so iconic that it felt like a disservice to just completely go against them. That would just be sort of being contrary for the sake of being contrary. So we wanted to use that film as a jumping off point, and I think the way they shot the 91 film in particular is so crazy. It's so over the top, so big. It was just like, well, let's use that. And, you know, TV these days, I think, you know, all TV looks good, I think I can say, right? Like there's a sort of formula, particularly for modern television, the cameras we use, the lenses we use, grading, that it all kind of looks good. So it was like, well, what can we do to just sort of shake things up, take some big swings, take some risks? And so we really studied the 91 film.
Oh, you did.
And talked about it a lot, and just used the sort of our knowledge of that film as a jumping off point for how can we kind of go further. And kind of, why not? Like I say, the score and the kind of B-movie feel of it just gives that opportunity for risk-taking. And so a lot of the conversations were about, like, how crazy are we going to go? And particularly because it's a 10-episode series, it was kind of a case of let's not throw everything at the pilot. Let's show a little bit of restraint. I mean, I think that's kind of crazy, but that's really restrained compared to where this thing ends up.
I have seen a few more episodes, I have to admit. Sorry, not sorry. But yeah, and it does go more towards, more towards the crazy, for sure.
And like, I don't want to like sort of, because no one's seen it yet, I don't want to kind of hype it too much or whatever, but I feel like we had a plan across the series for where we thought we would get. But it became this almost kind of a competition with ourselves to kind of outdo the last episode. Because, you know, American episodic television, new director comes in, and it was kind of a case of we would show them, bring them up to speed, but they would always want to one-up the last one, and one-up, and one-up. And it really became, I don't want to say competitive, but, you know, by the end, some of the shots that we were designing and planning were just absurd, in a good way, I hope.
Okay, so 2 questions here. Did you have all 10 episodes? Did you have the scripts for all 10 episodes when you started? And did you then shoot 1 episode at the time? Because I saw that you have 9 directors over 10 episodes, and
Yeah.
you had 4 of them.
Yes.
And I mean, for me, that's absolutely mental.
Yeah.
So how did it? How did you do it? Did you shoot with one? And yeah, you tell us. I
Yeah,
have
so
no idea.
this was the alternating system. So Celiana, the alternating DP, and I were sort of both hired from the beginning. I was working with Morton on the pilot. She was working with SJ on episode 2. And basically the structure was I shoot while she preps. So I shot episode 1 while she was prepping episode 2. Then she shoots episode 2. I prep episode 3, and we just alternate. So I knew I had my 5 episodes, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9.
Yeah.
I think from memory I had scripts up to 7 maybe, which is
That's quite
pretty
good.
good
That's pretty
considering what
good.
it can be like.
Yeah.
And an outline and a structure for the remaining episodes. And it was, the American system, you have a showrunner who's across everything. Each director comes in trying to make the best episode, and you've got to kind of be loyal to everyone. And it's like, I'd sort of struggle with this a bit, because it sort of feels, I guess, two-faced sometimes, but it's not, because you're just trying to make the best thing possible. And what I mean by that is you have to be the showrunner's DP. Like, I've got you for the whole series. I'm going to give you the vision that you want. But then the director, I've got to be your DP, and I'm giving you exactly what you want. And sometimes that's different to what the showrunner wants. And then the episode 3 director comes along, and okay, let's how do we beat episode 1? And I've got to be, yes, I'm your DP, yes, I'm your DP, yes, I'm your DP. And you're constantly sort of competing almost with yourself, whilst trying to then also, not do a disservice to the audience and keep some sort of a line through the middle of it, so it's not just all over the place and different and crazy. And so a lot of that was, it was communication. It was, Celiana and I talked a lot about, okay, my director's had this crazy idea, and we're going to do this. Great. Okay. And we really did kind of stay in touch to make sure all of this craziness had some sort of a middle that we kept coming back to.
That sounds so stressful.
It was, yeah.
Yeah?
but the best sort of stress, like an absolute incredible privilege. It was a great job. But it was a job where I think the management part of being a cinematographer, that I think we don't really talk about very much, where it's not just, the art, it's the management, it's the bureaucracy, and it's the keeping everyone happy, whilst also sort of putting your neck on the line, trying to be bold.
When I was studying, Stuart Harris used to tell me, he was like, cinematography is 90% politics, 10% photography.
Yeah.
And I was like, nah, Stuart, you're wrong. And now I'm like, yeah, it's a lot of politics that goes into it.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is it's kind of manipulating the situation to give yourself the best chance of doing something good. And that can be budget, that can be time, that can be a schedule, that can be interpreting what someone is asking for with what you think they really want. And you're just sort of pushing and pulling all these elements to kind of land in a situation where you think you can slip a little bit of good work in there, I think that's the job, at least, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's, so how many, just a technical question, how many days prep and how many days shoot did you have for each episode?
It was, for the pilot, we had, I want to say 20 days shoot, 4 weeks, which for an hour is pretty good in TV land. And then I think they tried to kind of get to 15 to 17 days of shooting per episode and prepping. It was a little bit fluid. There were more complicated episodes, there were less complicated, but it was kind of a month of shooting, a month of prepping each time, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about the score. It's a very, very interesting, very bombastic, kind of classic score. I mean, I'm not a musician, so I don't know the words to explain it, but it feels very like it could have been, with the original, like more of a classic kind of old school score.
Yeah.
Did you have access to, so you had access to, because it feels like the images and the score together build up the tension incredibly well.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there thinking, like, did he know what the score was going to be, or is it just so well done that it's
There's a
but
mix.
you knew.
Yeah. We knew, like, because the score actually goes back to the 60s version. The sort of iconic theme is from the 60s version, updated to 91, and we knew that we were going to not ignore that and use it. And I think the score is so big, it's so over the top, you know, but it creates such an atmosphere that I felt like if my visuals, our visuals, were restrained and subtle and small, that would sort of not work to me. That felt like there would be too big a gap there. So I actually found the score and the idea that we were going to be using the score quite liberating. Again, to just be bold. Like, it's a bold, loud, in-your-face score. So I had to try and meet it halfway, you know.
Oh, so you were competing with the composer as well?
Well, yeah, I mean, more like, inspired. But I mean, there's something so evocative about that score. And a big thing about Cape Fear is I went from a wintry, it was February, on the beach, shooting in, you know, like as cold as it gets in the UK, shooting a really long job. I had one day off and flew to Savannah, Georgia for our first scout of Spanish moss, thunderstorms and heat. And so that thing when you get off the aeroplane and you're just hit by a wave of heat, that was my big impression of just what it felt like to be in Savannah. So there's something about the score and something about just being in Savannah, Georgia, that gave all of us this sort of vision for how do we make the audience feel the sweat and the heat and the kind of violence of the weather. The lightning, the sun feels hotter there. And like Anna says in the screenplay, it's either raining or about to rain. And that is what it feels like. You know, there's a huge torrential downpour and 15 minutes later it's dry again. And it just keeps going, and so that in collaboration with the score really felt like it gave us a sort of a texture that's, I don't know, as a cinematographer, that's a thing to really latch onto, I think.
Do you think also as like a foreigner in Savannah, you see it with fresh eyes?
Definitely. Yeah, you feel it. It's so uncomfortable. Like you're used to, you know, I was just cold. My bones were cold from shooting on a beach for 3 weeks. And suddenly I'm sweating and it's shorts, you know. It's as ridiculous as that, but it's kind of, it's just so different, and that humidity, it's almost like a jungle. You know, the trees form these canopies over the street. And I learned very quickly, you know, drones and aerials were pointless. It was like looking down at just green. You couldn't even see the streets. So it creates this sort of close environment with the weather. Yeah, it's really strange.
Wow.
But it was, I mean, I think with weather, you know, often when you break down a script and you talk about what you need, on this job, it was just an absolute given with the ADs, with SFX, that there was going to be either a full wet down, like 100% of the time, or an active rain machine. We always, you know, even a dry scene was wet the whole street down, wet all the trees, wet all the windows, and just let it evaporate. And that was across 10 episodes. We always had a Bowser the whole time. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
It's fun. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Made it shiny.
Yeah. What about, so there's a few moments obviously that really stands out. I mean, it's beautiful, but like the introduction of Max Cady, for example, of him stepping into the light, very iconic. What was obviously that was planned.
That was in the script.
That was in the script?
Very directly in the script, that he stood at the back of that large dinner with a slash of darkness across his face. And I knew that I would have to light that environment for it to work in a wide shot, because the director wanted the ability to play it in a wide of him stepping into that light. So I sort of built that moment and lit the room backwards from that. And I also knew I wanted to introduce the theme of water at that point. So there's actually kind of inexplicable water effect in that scene,
in the
which
background.
is kind of motivated by nothing. But I just wanted it there as a kind of Cady thing. And like as he's walking across this sort of bridge to get there, we just hit him with water. And it was kind of, I mean, where this goes, water plays a big theme. And it just felt like, it's one of those things where I think, for me at least, my process, I'm always trying to motivate light from something real and sort of working backwards from the environment. But this was, again, it was a way to get out of my comfort zone and just sort of not have to justify or explain things other than thematically. it's kind of cool that there's water there. Doesn't matter where it's from.
Yeah,
it's
it's
just
super cool.
It just is what it is.
Yeah.
And that became a real theme of the show, of my gaffer, Bob Bates, who had all different techniques for how he could get water effect inexplicably anywhere. I mean, sometimes, daylight scenes, bouncing it into a mirror, nighttime scenes like that. And we were even using a projector occasionally to project a sort of water effect onto walls. Just when thematically it felt right, yeah.
Yeah, so cool. Also the opening scene with the color negative effect or whatever you may call it. That is obviously an homage to the 91 film. How did you do that?
Well, the truth is we did it in post. It's yeah, no, it's but it's true. Credit where credit's due. We talked about how we could photochemically or with infrared, or we talked about all kinds of things, but the truth is practically what it came down to is we didn't know exactly where and when we wanted to use it. The showrunner in particular wanted the ability to put it on anywhere. So loads of those images at the beginning of that montage weren't necessarily for color negative. It was a thing, we knew that we wanted to do the effect, and there was a lot of experimentation with my colorists, Damien at Harbour. We worked remotely, and honestly, it was one of those where it was kind of like, okay, here's the 91 film, here's the LUT for the show, what can we do? And he would just send back him messing around, frankly. And honestly, it's one of those where I just give total credit to the colorist, because he did that. And we sort of looked at ways of emulating what would really happen, and then how you manipulate that to be more interesting. So like when the girls are swimming in the pool, we wanted to set it to just red to blood or whatever, which isn't really what it would have done using that thing.
That's in the film, right?
It's in the film.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
I've forgotten that. Okay. There you go.
Like some kind of like double exposure thing in red.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Well, like I say, I mean, I give my colorist all the credit for all of the photonegative work on that. Yeah.
And did he make the show LUT as well?
Yeah, that was a big thing. I knew with we had Apple, we had Amblin, we had Universal, we had some big name execs, we had a showrunner, we had directors, and I knew we wanted to be bold. So what I didn't want to do, I did push the color negative stuff to post, but I didn't want to be hiding behind, we'll grade it later to make it interesting. I wanted to push the LUT as far as we possibly could. So a lot of camera testing, a lot of sessions of back and forth, just pushing it bolder and bolder and bolder, which culminated in a pre-shoot day with the cast in costume and makeup, all kinds of lighting tests, each one walking towards camera. It was almost like a promo shoot of just, slow motion and water effect and all of that with the LUT, making sure that was 99% what we were going to be showing at the end. So we sort of did all the work in prep, made sure all the dailies, all the monitors, we were committing to that look, so that if any notes were going to come, we could handle them, rather than, I think a film, or a series this bold, I just wanted to confront all of that boldness on set rather than later.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't get it through later, no?
Well,
I feel like
exactly.
if it's not there and people have watched
and they get used to it
500 times, they're not. You can't go in and go, this is what we're doing now.
Yeah, it would kind of look crazy by concept.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like when when Alexa the camera first came out, and there wasn't really a sort of LUT culture. And I remember in commercials in particular, people would get used to the log C image, and and then you just put on a basic 709, and it'd be like, whoa, it's so bold, and it's like, no, that's just normal. This is the flat one, So it was kind of that. I just the LUT I used for this was so kind of crazy that then moving on to another job, going back to something more normal, it was like, oh God, this is hard.
But you kind of buy into it quite quickly, though. first you're like, okay, and then you're like, okay, yeah, and like you forget, and you're just in that world, right?
I hope so. I mean, I do think there's a relativity, like your brain kind of figures, it's kind of like if you're watching a movie on an aeroplane, you know, a tiny little rubbish screen, terrible contrast, terrible color. But after about 5 minutes, you sort of don't think about that anymore. Your brain kind of just figures it out and adjusts for it. And I feel like this is similar. It's bold out of context, but you actually kind of get used to it. And by the end, hopefully,
I felt like, okay, I'm not giving anything away, but I felt like it was going bolder mainly because of the color combination later in the later episodes. Color combination of the lighting and the costume and everything goes a bit more extreme. Yeah.
Definitely.
Later for sure.
Yeah.
So keep watching, kids. It's great. So camera Alexa.
Yes.
Alexa what?
35. I'm pretty boring with cameras. I've shot Alexa, I'd say exclusively for about 10 years. I just trust it the most, know it the most. The color side. I knew being that bold, dynamic range and color and just reliability, I just knew I wanted. I didn't want to be worrying about that. I just know that camera, know that how that reacts, and it's reliable. And we also knew we wanted 235 anamorphic. The Cape Fear 91 was 235, so we wanted to have the same aspect ratio. So I knew I wanted a Super 35 sensor. I didn't want to get into large format or anything like that. I wanted to be a bit more sort of classical with the format. Yeah.
So you got to decide that together with Morten, or was that always like?
I think Morten maybe from memory, because he likes widescreen photography. I think that maybe came from Morten. I'd have to check my notes, but I'm pretty sure that came from him that he wanted widescreen. Yeah. Okay. And sort of the anamorphic and deep diving into that. You know, I just jumped off of that and went further and further. Yeah.
And lenses?
Lenses, these were Atlas Mercuries, which, you know, the 1.5 D-squeeze on the Super 35 sensor gives you a pretty full, you know, like on a 2x anamorphic, you're actually chopping quite a lot off the sides, and the 1.5 gives you quite a nice sort of solid Super 35 anamorphic image, and I wanted there to be interest without it feeling too vintage, and I didn't want it to be too sharp, and they kind of hit a nice little sweet spot of just sort of some of the best things about sort of, let's say, 90s American Hollywood cinematography and something a bit more modern. So yeah, and a lot of zoom shots, less in the pilot than to come, but I had a 70 to 200 and a 40 to 4, whatever it is, ingenue anamorphic for you know, zoom became like a huge part of the show, the kind of voyeurism thing, and actually some punch zooms later on as well.
You did a crash zoom as well. No,
yeah, there's a contra
zoom.
Yeah. I mean, you know.
Yeah, it was great.
Big visual storytelling.
Yeah, loved it.
I was nervous doing that because it is sort of, I don't know, I get a bit insecure about that shot because it's so big. But it's, you know, that's what's happening.
No, it
and
works.
there's something, I think there's a little wink to the audience there that hopefully works. Yeah,
totally. Can I be boring and ask you a little bit more kind of about, so this, because I find that when I'm on a show and I'm shooting and then the next block DP is coming and doing tech recce's and they take the crew, they want to take the crew for the tech recce. Yep. And there's always like this kind of divorce court where you're like, if you take the gaffer, I keep the operator. It's like, literally on my last show, we were like mum and dad having a divorce. It was like, it was hard. Yep. And I mean, all friendly, we're all friends. But it was like, it's, I don't know how to solve this because you don't want, when you're shooting, you don't want your crew to leave. Yeah. But you also want to prep. Yep. What did you do with 9 directors, 2 DPs, and I don't know,
and
one crew?
Yeah, one crew, all the way through. It was 144 shoot days. They did every single day. So did he go on the recce's with you, or did? Yeah. So the way we did it, Bob Bates gaffer and my key grip Eric, the system we had was tech recce and production meeting day. They went to the next episode. So it was just sort of We said that from the beginning. So out of like a 20-day shoot, I lost them for 2 days, and their bests or whatever stepped up. But we tried to schedule with that in mind. So when we were scheduling our current episode, we would be in conversation with the next incoming episode about when their tech recce was. And if it was a particularly difficult scene, like if I'm lighting up a whole graveyard at night, cranes everywhere, moonlight, it would be like, you can't tech recce that night because I need Bob. But equally, okay, if we're on a standing set or something we're doing, please put the tech recce this day because you can have Bob. And that's kind of how it went. So like you say, you are slightly pushing and pulling this one person, but it works both ways, because you need them on your episode, and so it was scheduling. The ADs were sympathetic to that.
Okay.
Yeah, but it is a thing.
It is a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, what can we do? What is the solution here?
Yeah, I had 2 gaffers, but that's weird. I don't know. Yeah.
Don't know, any
Day
gaffers
off,
out there?
nice.
What do you think? Gaffers? Yeah, I don't know.
A day off. I mean, yeah. I think like this show, like I say, it's 144 shoot days. There was not one down day. Like from day one, the crew, the focus puller, the operators, every single day they worked.
Except for weekends, I guess.
Except for weekends.
Except for weekends,
yes.
yeah.
But there was never a sort of hiatus day. There was never a prep day
yeah.
that everyone stood down.
I was thinking a lot about the tension, about the camera move and how creepy it is. Mm-hmm. And I mean, obviously a lot to do with the score as well. Mm-hmm. That you said you played on set. You told me.
Yeah.
And the camera moves and how are you approaching this genre? Were you?
I mean, it's a thriller with horror elements, I would say.
Yeah.
And anytime it was horror, I actually started my career with horror, like horror, zero budget horror movies. I used to be a horror guy. I used to be the horror DP.
You, the horror guy.
That's how I did it. Yeah,
Okay.
I did a whole bunch of horror films in a row. And horror, I think, as a DP, is so much fun. Because it's so visual, lighting can be more theatrical, shots are telling story, and so all of that stuff, it's just, I think, being in tune with what's happening and what's important and knowing when it's, okay, this is a scene where, 2 actors are acting in a car and it's not the time for that type of thing, but, the creepiness of the house and anytime it was like, it's all there in the script, anytime it was, something is watching, rising tension, we just leaned into that and reacted to what it was telling us to do, to be honest, yeah. So I think it was just being sensitive to what was required in that moment to tell the story visually. If that makes sense, yeah. And the score on set started as a joke. It would be, I think we did a shot of Javier with just his eyes, and on the comms, it was just sort of on, playing the Cape Fear song, like, you know what I mean? Yeah. And all the operators laugh, and it was, I don't know, we did that a few times, and then it was, I think one of the directors realised I was doing that, and it was like, okay, no, get the speaker, and it was, on set. I don't know, it became a thing. I don't know, it was kind of silly, but
that's so good though, because it does influence your camera movement and your speed and everything when you have the soundtrack.
Yeah, I think it emboldens you to be sort of braver or weirder sometimes.
It's kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. You were making a music video, basically.
Sometimes.
with the Javier Bardem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite scene? I can ask that while I'm reading.
Do I have a favorite scene? I've got a favorite shot, which is maybe a weird shot, but they're sort of trying to come up with visual motifs, and there was always going to be the water thing. And the scene where Javier arrives by the pool in their back garden and they're all stood and there's the panther, I wanted to sort of set up a lot of sort of theatrical things there where Javier's lit by the water and they're lit with a security light through a tree, creating all this crazy dappled lighting. And I kind of was building to that for a long time, knowing that when he says the thing about I haven't told anyone about what happened or whatever it is he says, we knew we wanted him to lean into this sort of two shot, and I had the security light in exactly the place I wanted it through the tree, so that I could just pop the flare a little bit just as that line landed, and I kind of had that shot in my mind very early on in prep. So that shot I worked backwards from to like that scene, but I then took elements of that shot and put it into any time you met Katie in that episode before to try and sort of build to it. So just from a sort of nerdy, I don't know, process thing, that shot was kind of the whole thing for me. Whether it's good or not or whatever, but that was the sort of thing that, I don't know, it was like the key image for me of the episode. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I know the shot. It's nice.
Yeah.
It's really
We got a
nice.
lot of takes of that shot, I must
Did
say.
you?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, a lot.
Why? Just to get it like.
Well, I tell you why, because it was highly technical, but off the back of, for the actors, an incredibly important moment.
Yeah.
And this is one of those times where I like to try to be a sensitive cinematographer and not overstep my mark when it's an acting moment. You know, like sometimes it's a technical shot, sometimes the camera's doing the storytelling, the lighting, the mark, whatever, all that technical stuff is crucial. Other times I'm much more, let's stay out the way, let's not interfere with the actors, let's be sensitive. And this was that kind of both. I needed them to just land that absolutely perfectly, but they needed the warm-up to get to that moment. So it was kind of a Javier performance shot, handheld, that was about a 2.5 minute lead up to then stepping into that perfect moment, and then you have to get the perfect Amy and the perfect flare. It's a lot.
But that's when you need the director on your side.
Yeah.
Which I assume you had.
Absolutely did, yes.
Great.
I want to say it was like 11 takes, something like that. And we maybe had 2 good ones. You know, it's just the way it went. But yes, that was such a key shot for us that there was no way we were going to move on until we were all happy. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I need to hand over to the audience, but any gossip? Any goss? Any?
The actors were amazing. It was fun.
Sure. Yeah.
Americans work too long hours. That's one thing I'd say.
I've heard that.
We've got it so great here, like, because that's the thing. Like, oh God, I don't want to rant.
Go on.
Long hours,
This is what we
long
wanna hear.
hours, 12
Yeah.
to 14-hour days. The crew are doing 144 days. It's just, it's crazy. I got to step off. You know, I get that at least a bit of a week to recuperate. But yeah, God, long hours. Yeah, we've got it great here.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay. Any questions? Anyone? There's a microphone there, I think.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Eben.
Hello.
I thought it was great. Thank you. 2 very quick questions. One, I really enjoyed the panning shot that goes on and on along the staircase to the perfect reveal. I wondered whether that was easy to capture or whether it was a bit of a nightmare. Second question is, you've got some grain on there. Was that very straightforward, or did it turn into grain gate and become a thing with the studio?
Good questions. Yes, so the shot where you hear the family talking and you are up into reveal, like, again, in this genre, I felt like we had the time to get there. There were conversations about, I always forget what it's called, where when you pan too quickly, you get the jumping. There's a word for that, I should know, and I've forgotten. But we timed all that out. We actually, in typical how we shot this show fashion, did some crazier variations of that with a zoom lens, and we actually started the shot upside down a couple of times, so it would be an upside down or starting the right way up and ending upside down. But, you know, upside down at the beginning of the shot didn't really make sense, and at the end of the shot it was harder to read what was actually happening, so we ended up with that. But it was one of those where the first AD was sort of like, we're going again. But to be like, full credit actually to our showrunner, Nick, who was like, this shot is really important and we need the time, and we did it a lot of times. So yeah, and the grain, I knew I wanted to, you know, the sort of, the overall aesthetic, I wanted as much texture as possible. So, you know, heat and distortion and flares, and all, there were, you know, it goes to some even crazier places, but I did want to make sure we had a film emulation grain in there. And it was one of the first times I actually baked it in. So this was actually the in-camera textures on the Alexa 35. That it was one of those things where it was a little bit last minute, but we decided we hadn't gone down the live grain route. We just had time or whatever. And talking to Nick, the showrunner, it was like, I think this should be a grainy show. Do you agree? Yes. Shall we just bake it in and commit to that now, rather than everyone gets used to slightly more sterile rushes? And he just said, yeah, let's bake it in. And so we did. And in the end, I actually think we could have gone bolder, actually. You know, I love that. There's something just organic that does to an image that I really enjoy. But yeah, very much planned and baked in. Yeah.
Anyone else? Over there? I mean, it sounds like you had a lot of support from like production and showrunner and directors. It sounds like you had like a good kind of thing going.
Yeah, everyone wanted the show to stand out. They wanted it to be brave. They didn't want it to be boring. And so honestly, it became a bit of a, like I said, like a bit of a competition. Like once my operators tuned in to what we were doing on this show, the operators would pitch me shots, which under any other circumstance would be like, what are you, like, that's great. But on this show, it was like, great, let's upside down in the mirror and whip pan and zoom and go upside down. And, you know, it gets there, which was crazy and fun. And there were, honestly, at times we're sort of laughing on set at the absurdity of some of the shots we were trying to pull off. But the showrunner was just like, great, go bolder. It was that kind of thing.
What did Marty say? Did he call you up?
Marty?
Marty.
Not personally, Marty, yeah. No, I mean, this is the other thing. Oh, yeah. We literally had the two biggest names in, you know, at least 90s American cinema watching dailies, which was just insane. I mean, it's just a silly thing to say. But it meant we did have God notes coming in, because if either of those people say something, you know, what are you going to do? Which there was, I won't go into the detail, but there was one thing that me and a director thought it should be this thing, and someone was like, well, actually, Stephen thinks it should be that thing. It was like, yep, we're wrong. So it's that one. That really happened. And yeah, you know, yeah. But then, yeah, what I would say is I think they were very involved from a distance, which was great because I think they liberated directors and me to just sort of do our thing. The idea of either of them being on set is sort of,
I mean, that would
I'd just be like, okay, I'm a fraud. You've caught me. Like, you know, it's just too much. So
they never came to visit.
Not that I'm aware of. No. I mean, they were in
behind the bush somewhere.
Well, I mean, you know, they were notes would come in, and they were in the read-throughs on Zoom and stuff like that, and they sent some donuts, and you know, there was some interaction, which is just, you know,
that's pretty cool,
pretty crazy. Yeah.
Pretty cool. Question. Who was it? Who's got the mic?
Hi, I have the mic. I just wanted to say it was so beautifully shot. It's very inspiring for me as a big fan of 90s cinema and as a young filmmaker. I loved the use of shadows and colour, and I wanted to ask, what were your not so obvious visual references? Did you have any more music or paintings or other things in mind when you were shooting this? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Raiders of the Lost Ark is the short answer, which kind of makes no sense, but makes perfect sense to me, because I think Raiders of the Lost Ark is the film where I was like, that is a thing I love, and I don't really understand how or why, and I think like my whole life really, I've been sort of my whole life and my whole career, that sort of in my like head has been the sort of pinnacle of what you can do with visual storytelling. That's just the way I'm wired. Like I'm unashamedly sort of 90s, or well, that's earlier, but like I grew up on kind of Amblin American movies, the way Spielberg shoots. And I like, as a cinematographer, I've always had this sort of, I think as we all do in some respect, but like a crippling sense of imposter syndrome, you know, and particularly like coming from the digital generation. I started on DSLRs. I haven't got the kind of romantic version of 8mm film and blah, blah, blah. So I always felt like a bit of a sort of fraud as a DP, and always had sort of things on my, like things I had to get past, like, okay, I've never shot film before. I need to learn to shoot film. And so found out a way to do that. And what this is all leading to is I think I sort of, in digital cinematography, kind of figured out a formula that worked for me and for the projects I was shooting on. But in my head, that was very different to what Douglas Slocum and Steven Spielberg were doing on Raiders of the Lost Ark. And actually, I wanted to do that. But that felt like this sort of mythical, impossible thing. Just using that amount of light, using hard light, was so different to what was happening in the industry. So this felt like the first opportunity to kind of get out of my comfort zone and aim a bit more for that slightly more old-fashioned way of lighting in particular, and using much more hard light and just getting out of my comfort zone. And I kind of thought, again, Raiders is just that thing I'm always aiming for, and however much I kind of miss by makes it a bit more mine, you know? Because I'm sort of aiming for that.
Yeah.
I'm not capable of that, so I end up somewhere else, which is kind of mine. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Maybe the next one will be like even more.
That's just, it's where I like, you know, I think there's a lot of films I could say that we all kind of love, but that just feels like a sort of, when I'm a grown-up DP, I want to do that, you know? And I'm just still trying to get there somehow, whilst also hopefully pushing it forwards or sort of, you know, moving it forwards, not just looking backwards. But this was the best opportunity I've had so far to really explore that. Yeah.
To do that. Yeah. Great.
I don't have a mic, I'll just talk about it.
Oh, you got one there.
You do now.
Sorry. Yeah, you talked about when you made the show lot, and I imagine that must be crazy with so many people involved. How much time did you actually get? Like, how quickly could you get to that place where you could get a shoot going, and how did you go about making that lot? Did you have someone on set whilst you were shooting? Did you take it somewhere else? How many places that need to go? Yeah, curious.
So it started, I think I can say that. It started with the colorist who I wanted to do the project wasn't on the project yet. And I actually sent him, I'd done a little, just a really quick test in the car park at Arry Rental, Uxbridge. And I sent him, like on WhatsApp, like a link to a raw file, just a still image. And we had a phone conversation about the look I was going for. And he had a quick play and then pinged me over a JPEG of a quick attempt at what I described. Showed that to the showrunner. He loved it. So we got that colorist. That was sort of the way I, manipulated that situation to get him. Then it was, how did we do it? Then I think once the first set was built in my first pre-light, I set up a day scene and a night scene, just did a sort of slow push into a face, and then applied that same LUT, or I think I lit it to that LUT, but we had another session remotely to tweak the LUT and play with it. Then I had that pre-shoot day with the cast, where we really had the whole unit there, set up a whole thing, costume, makeup, Amy, Javier, Patrick, and kind of pushed in. This is with what we thought was the LUT. And then I had one more session after that to sort of unbelievably bring the greens down a little bit. They were really bonkers, and we that's the down version.
That's okay.
So yeah, it was a back and forth process. Always, we were working remotely because Damien was in New York. I was in Atlanta, just on an iPad, and we lent into HDR as well. It was made for, we knew it's for Apple TV. Most people were going to watch it 4K HDR. So it was HDR LUT, HDR monitors on set. To be honest, that's what we sort of shot it for, because we thought that's the way most people are going to see it. But once we started shooting, I don't believe the LUT changed again. It was sort of set in stone, yeah.
One more, maybe?
Hello. Well done. Thought it was brilliant.
Thank you.
I feel the same way about Raiders of the Lost Ark.
I mean, right? It's just it.
It's my favourite film. My son's called Indy. Quick question, not a quick question. You mentioned about how it goes crazy throughout the series.
Yeah.
I'm about to start a series. I'm an operator. Mm-hmm. I wondered, how much planning did you actually go into for the different styles of the camera work that we're going to watch as we watch Cape Fear unfold? Mm-hmm. How you decided the episodes where it was going to go, whether it was going to be handheld, what you were going to do, how you were going to make it different stylistically. And I also wonder how much, if you look at it now, how much did you stick to your plan? Not just from an operating point of view, I'm talking about the whole thing. Like,
Sure.
if you felt that you had this journey all the way to the end and it goes crazier, how much did you stick to the plan that you came up with? And what was that plan?
Yeah. So I think we, I guess like anything, you sort of lay out the episode at least, and you sort of know, okay, this is a key moment, this is a key moment, this is a key moment, and those key moments can be reflected either with sort of big elaborate lighting or big camera moves or something particularly expressive for camera. So just top of my head, we knew we were going to end up handheld at the end of this episode. It just felt like a kind of obvious place to sort of land. And in terms of big shots, we were liberated to kind of do anything. So there was always this slight challenge of what we could do. And I think the great thing about that challenge was directors felt kind of challenged to kind of come up with their big shots. I felt challenged to come up with shots with my directors to push that forward. And the operators, this was a show where we liberated the operators to add more, absolutely. So we would occasionally come in going, okay, this whole set has been designed around this idea, and this is the shot, and this is the plan. Other times it would be like, this is what we thought we wanted, but now we're stood here in the room or the blocking or whatever. How do we get back to that energy that was behind the crazy idea? Jarrett Morgan was my A-camera operator who did Underground Railroad for Barry Jenkins, and he's incredible. And some of the things we asked him to do were just sort of bonkers, and he just nailed it time and time again. And I do try to, like I say, liberate the operators to just add all the value of what they do. Like for me, a great operator is one who, if I ask for something incredibly specific for whatever reason, they do it. But if there's a feeling that I'm not quite capturing, they offer the solution with something I haven't thought of. And we definitely had that thing. And in terms of the series overall, that it felt like the hard thing, to be honest, was not letting each director do everything. You're trying to kind of pull it back a bit, trying to restrain it so we had somewhere to go. I don't really know if I'm successful in that yet, because I haven't seen the whole thing. I've seen it myself up to episode 6, I think, yes. And it gets pretty crazy. I haven't seen my final episode yet to know what they've used or what they haven't, but there's some stuff in there that they could use that's bonkers, the craziest shots I've ever done. So I think that answers your question.
Can you give us an example of a crazy shot?
Yeah, let me think. There's a shot we did of Patrick Wilson waking up. How did we do it? It was into a mirror. I'm trying to remember how we did it. Yeah, it was into a mirror, and as he moved, we came out of the mirror onto his face in the second position, not realizing, like it was a cut from him to him, if you see what I mean. So you don't realize you're in the mirror. He moves out of it as we whip to land on him again from a different position. So it's sort of like hiding a cut, but optically, which then swung round to a door with a crash zoom onto the door. That's the first one that came to mind, which was just, and in the script, it's like he wakes up and there's a knock at the door, And there's lots of playing, there's lots of upside down stuff. There's, not my episode, there's an aspect ratio grow, which I think's pretty amazing. Celiana did that. It's, I won't spoil anything, when and where, but it's a 2:3:5 show, and there's a certain point where it expands to 16:9, just full open TV aperture, which is kind of awesome. Just because watching that, it's like, geez, it really worked, I thought. That was great. I don't know. There's a lot. We had a 70 to 200 zoom on the Steadicam, and there were a couple of times he was running around with that Steadicam, whip pan, and crash zoom, and back out again. Focus puller. It was a thing, yeah. It's in the show. That one definitely is in the show, yeah.
One more. Duncan says.
Hi, James.
think maybe a boring one to end on, but carrying that thread forward a bit. Given the amazing kind of authorship of those kind of shot designs, I was curious of your relationship with the editors and how well you're prepping them for what you were intending to do and how well they honoured what you were doing and held on to all of those visions that you had on set and in prep.
I wish I had a better answer. It's a good question. Like on something like on The Last of Us, I had an amazing relationship with my editor, back and forth, conversations, like every single day, just talking back and forth about what we had done and the intention, and like I was with it all the way through. This job just didn't work like that. I didn't ever meet the editor, I've got to be honest.
But they saw what you're doing and they honoured it.
100%, yes. Like my director, it's the sort of American system. The director goes in and does their sort of 4 or 5 days, and it's a whole sort of secretive, different thing in America. But they absolutely, I mean, they I think honoured it. And actually even found ways to, there's a few things in there that weren't planned that are very much from the edit, particularly the colour negative stuff, like Javier leaving prison, the sort of infrared effect thing they did, that all of that was in the edit, from the editor. So yeah, it wasn't like a direct collaboration, but they very much embraced the spirit of what it was, and we were all kind of making the same thing. I think the credit for that is the showrunner. I think he's the one sort of tying those two things together. Yeah. Yeah.
But thank you so much.
Thank you, Annika, so much. Thank you. Great talking to you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for coming. Thank you.